You know, I was thinking of starting off this level guide with sort of a finale type intro. Something along the lines of, this is the final level guide of the rundown. Thank you for joining me throughout Rundown 6 and being there with me. I'm glad I could help out so many people and gain their level completions, yada yada, that whole spiel. But then I realized I already did that back with the D4 level guide, so how about I save you from potentially hearing it a second time and we just jump straight into the true final level guide for Rundown 6? Sound like a plan? I figured you'd agree. Alright, let's get right into it then. For this level, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and 2 burst sentries. The reason for the bio tracker is because 1, there are a lot of scouts in this level, 2, there's a fair amount of infectious fog throughout the level that can easily conceal the location of enemies, 3, there is a zone where a blackout will occur where the darkness will conceal the location of enemies, and 4, towards the end of the level especially, we need to make sure that our situational awareness is up to code, because at the end of the level, we're going to be in the desert realm, and we're going to have to do 3 uplink terminals before we get teleported back. And while we're doing these uplink terminals, we're going to have waves of enemies coming at us from every single direction. So being able to tag these enemies and know what route they're taking to get up or down to us in advance, that way we can set up our defenses before they arrive, will make things a whole lot easier for the team. When it comes to the mine deployer, I like to use this to help out a bit for some of the alarm doors throughout the earlier portions of the level. They can help out quite a bit in some of the zones that have a lot of scouts in them. That way if something goes wrong and we do wake them up, we can just fall back behind a door, mine it, and let the mine deal with most of them. And while they aren't the most effective tool for the desert realm portion of the level, they definitely can help out quite a bit since there are some doors out there we can mine. That, and of course, just having sort of a last line of defense mine near where we're holding out can help out, because if enemies get past the sentry and they get past our gunfire, or maybe we're just not looking at the direction they're coming from, they're going to step into that mine and blow up before they have the chance to attack us, and it sort of notifies players, hey, a mine just went off, that means there might be more enemies coming from the direction, so you can more quickly respond to it. And then finally, when it comes to the burst sentries, we want some extra firepower because we're going to be doing a whole lot of holding our ground in this level, and because of that, mines and seafoam together aren't really going to be the best because we can't guarantee we can keep the enemies away from us before we're done with what we're doing. So that's why I like to have 2, that way we have extra firepower. As for why I like the burst sentries, well, I find that they just sort of work the best throughout the entire level. Yes, there are moments where the sniper sentries or auto sentries even can work out even better than the burst sentry, but I feel like if you take every single situational throughout the level, the alarm doors, dealing with scouts potentially, dealing with the uplink terminals at the end and all of that, I feel like the burst sentry just is good at every point throughout the level. Sniper sentries might be better at some points, but they fall off greatly towards the end of the level. And auto sentries might work pretty good at the ending bit of the level, but they go through ammunition incredibly quickly and they don't really work that well for the beginning portion of the level. So personally, I find double burst sentry to be the best sentry combination. However, if you want to swap out one of the 2 burst sentries for an auto sentry, by all means go on ahead, you can definitely get it done that way. Just be careful with the auto sentry, make sure that you're placing it down effectively and it's not going through way too much of your tool refill. Dropping down into the level, you'll see that your main objective is to find the terminal located inside Zone 81 and create an uplink with it. And we're going to be starting off inside of Zone 75. Now, right off the get-go, Zone 75 is going to have a pretty fair amount of infectious fog in it, and you will gain a lot of infection if you try to go throughout it without repellers. Thankfully though, there are a lot of repellers you can find in the boxes and lockers throughout the zone. There are also going to be a lot of enemies though, so do be careful of them. If they aren't clumped up too close to each other, you could definitely just stealth kill them while you have the fog repellers out there, but if you also just feel like it, you could just simply pull the rooms and just let them all come to you. It's up to you and your team. Pulling the room might be the safer option, but it will definitely cost you some ammunition to keep on doing it. When you get to the far back end of the zone, you will find the security door to Zone 76. This security door is just going to be a full team scan. Inside Zone 76 is not really a whole lot I need to take note of. There will be some enemies, some resources, but more importantly, towards the back end of it, you'll find the security door to Zone 77. But this security door is going to have a Class 5 mixed alarm tied to it, so let's take a look at the map overlay. As you can see, there's only one room that enemies can potentially spawn in, and there is only one door that you can shut between you and them, so obviously make sure that door is closed and mined. As for your burst sentries, there's a number of different ways you could do it. You could just simply keep the burst sentries inside the room with you facing towards that door, or maybe just have one right in front of you that you just pick up and place down as you're working on the scans. Or if you want to, you could place one or both of them outside the door facing towards the direction they come from. I know I've said before that you never really want to place sentries on the outside of a door if you have in mind, but in all honesty, in this situation, I think it's fine. There is a pretty fair amount of torch fill in this level, and the sentries will be able to shoot at enemies for much longer if they're outside of the room rather than inside. So do it how I guess you see best fit. But once you finish this alarm, you can open up the security door and head into Zone 77. Inside of Zone 77, there will always be a few regular giant strikers, 4 regular scouts, and 1 charger scout you're going to need to deal with. And you're going to want to be very careful because even though Zone 77 consists of 2 rooms, there isn't a solid door between those 2 rooms. It's just an open room divider. So if you end up waking up an enemy or shooting your gun in here, you're going to wake up the entire zone. And that's going to be a lot of enemies, especially if you end up waking up all 5 of the scouts. So be very cautious, take it slowly through the zone, deal with the isolated enemies first. If there are a few enemies right next to each other, just leave them be for later. Be careful of the charger scout. You don't have a C-foam launcher with you, so if you're not used to doing coordinated takedowns, then I would recommend you wait until he's the last thing alive, that or the last scout alive, and then just simply shoot and kill him simultaneously, or just use a sniper rifle to the back or a shotgun or something, and you should be good. Once you've killed every enemy in this room, you can head to the back end of it. You'll find the security door to Zone 78. This security door is going to be a Class 3 stealth scan door, so the scans are going to go back out to the first portion of the room down to the infectious fog, so you will need some fog repellers. But go throughout here, collect the resources, work on the scans, and then once you finish all 3 sets of scans, you could go back to the security door 78 and activate the checkpoint scan tied to it. Inside of Zone 78, there will be enemies, there will be resources, and there will be doors, and every single one of these doors can be used for the upcoming alarm, so try your best to make sure that not a single one of them gets broken down. Speaking of the upcoming alarm, how about we take a look at it, because there's nothing really else I need to talk about inside Zone 78. The security door to 79, found at the far southern end of the zone, will have a Class 5 alarm tied to it. And as you can see with the map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies can spawn from. If they spawn on the western room, there are 3 doors they can go through. If they spawn to the eastern room, there are 2 doors they can go through. And they can go through all 5 of these doors, because I've actually had runs where all 5 of them get broken down. So for your setup, I recommend you make sure all 5 of the doors are mined, and then place your 2 burst sentries sort of near the room divider facing towards that area. That way, once the doors get broken down and they start coming your way, the sentries will be able to shoot at them a bit and kill them off or weaken them, and then you just have to deal with a few that do make it past the sentries. I would also recommend you make sure you have a few fog repellers on hand, because the scans do typically like to go down into the deeper portions of the fog. But once you've got everything ready to go, you can activate the alarm door, work on the scans, and once you finish it, you can open up the security door and head into Zone 79. Once you open up the security door to Zone 79 though, be aware that a blackout will occur. Now this blackout isn't going to be spawning in any enemies, sort of like it did back in CX. This blackout is just meant to make it a little bit more challenging to go throughout this zone, because in this zone there will be a lot of enemies. Mostly regular strikers and shooters, but there can also be some hybrids as well as some giant strikers in here. So be cautious as you're going throughout it, and if something does end up waking up and the room gets alerted, fall back a bit and take advantage of a door if you can. As you make your way through it, there'll be resources, and at the back end of it, you'll find the security door to Zone 80, and this security door is just going to be a full team scan. When you open up the security door to Zone 80, the lights will come back on throughout the entire level. So you don't have to worry about the darkness anymore, but you do need to worry about what's in Zone 80 itself, because in here there will be a lot of strikers and shooters, as well as 4 regular scouts and 2 charger scouts. Now, these are all thankfully not in the exact same room. There are a few rooms throughout Zone 80, but you want to be careful. If you end up waking up a scout, figure out what direction the wave is spawning from. If it's spawning from behind you, then get ready to deal with them, plop down your sentries, and just start shooting at them, or deal with the enemies that are in your room first quickly, and then get ready to deal with the wave that's approaching you. If the wave spawns further in though, I recommend if you're near the door, quickly mine it, but then run away and get out of the room you're currently in, because you do not want that wave to break open the door, scream, and then alert the scout in the room, and then spawn in even more enemies. So be very careful if you wake up a scout, and pay attention to what direction they're coming from. But as you make your way through the zone, you'll be able to find security door to Zone 81, and this security door will just have a checkpoint scan tied to it. Inside of Zone 81, specifically in the 3rd room, you'll be able to find the uplink terminal that you need for your main objective. But before you get there, you're going to have to go through a few rooms that'll have a lot of enemies in them, as well as a fair amount of infectious fog. So use fog repellers to traverse through them safely, kill off as many enemies as you can, or if you want to, you actually could avoid every single enemy in the 1st room. Technically, none of them need to die, but that's sort of up to you and your team. Everything in the 2nd room and the 3rd room, though, should be killed off before you initiate this uplink. The other thing, too, is before you start the uplink, you are going to want to use that terminal to see if there are any resources you accidentally left behind. If anything is in zone 81, 80, or 79, then by all means, I would recommend you go back and get them. But if it's all the way back in zone 75, 76, or 77, then it's up to you and your team. That 2-use ammo pack might be worth it, it might not be, So decide among your team. But once you're ready for the uplink itself, you're going to want to set up a few defenses. As you can see with the map overlay, there's only one room enemies could potentially spawn in, and there are 2 doors they have to go through to get to you. So bare minimum, place 1 mine on both of those doors. You could potentially find some C-foam grenades up to this point, and if you did and you want to use them, you definitely can. You can either C-foam both of the doors or just one of them. If you're just C-foaming one door, I actually recommend you C-foam the further back one. That way there's a higher chance that when that door breaks open, everything dies, since it's all piled up on it and nothing is still trying to make its way to the door, and that'll buy you more time before enemies spawn in and actually get to that second door. This uplink terminal itself is really not that hard. It is only a 4-code uplink, so pretty simple. In most situations, as long as you're not making a mistake, you should be able to actually get every single code in before enemies break into your room. But even if they do break into your room prematurely, it's not bad. You've got 3 people defending, as well as 2 sentries you could potentially use. It's pretty easy. However, the hard part comes immediately afterwards, because once you finish this uplink terminal and the 4th code is in and it fully processes it, you're going to hear some dialogue between Schaefer and Specimen 22. And about halfway through this dialogue, you're going to be teleported out to the Desert Realm, also known as Zone 0. When it comes to Zone 0, there's a fair amount of stuff I would like to mention. The first one being your updated main objective. The game is now going to tell you to find the 3 terminals out here in Zone 0 and create an uplink at every single one of them. And all of these uplink terminals will always be located in the same spots, and they work very similar to the one in Zone 81. There will be 4 codes per terminal you have to do, they'll spawn in enemies, the typical thing you can expect with an uplink terminal. The thing is though, enemies are not only going to be spawning in while you're doing the uplinks. Even outside the uplinks, enemies will be spawning in. They don't spawn in as quickly, but there will be a constant trickle spawn of them. These enemies consisting of things like strikers, shooters, flyers, as well as the occasional armored flyer, and very rarely even a hybrid. So speed is going to be key. The other thing too is that there is a fog level out here in Zone 0, and this fog level is going to be constantly rising up. Thankfully though, this fog is not infectious and it's not even really that dense. It's actually pretty easy to see through it, so if anything, this fog really isn't a threat, it's more so a mild inconvenience, but even then, this is not an excuse to take things slowly. Now, when it comes to advice, I hate to say this, but I honestly don't really have a this is the absolute best plan, because this entire segment is pretty hectic and there are many different ways to handle it. I will obviously be giving you advice, but do please keep in mind that this advice might not be the best for you and your team, and if that is the case, I do apologize. So what is my advice? Well, starting off, I recommend before you even do the uplink terminal in Zone 81, I probably should have mentioned this earlier in the guide, my bad, make sure nobody has a resource pack on them. Use up your med packs, your ammo packs, your tool refill, and disinfect packs. That way when we get teleported out here, you can just open up a box of locker, pick up whatever's in it, and keep moving. You want to move as fast as you can, and there are a lot of resources out here, more than you're going to need, but you're not going to really have the time to look everywhere and grab everything. A lot of them spawn on the beaten paths you'll be taking, but even then, there will be a few hidden ones here and there, and it's best to be able to just run past these, grab them, and keep on moving, instead of debating if you want to hold on to the 3-use ammo pack you brought into the realm with you, or the 4-use med pack you just found. So again, make sure you use up all of your resources before you get teleported. Once you get teleported, start running as fast as you can. Open up boxes and lockers, especially the ones towards the bottom, since you won't be coming back to this portion. Grab them and keep moving. If everybody's holding on to something, you don't really need to open up any boxes or lockers you run past at that point. You can if you want, but if there's a hack lock or a padlock, just keep on moving, especially if it's a box or locker near one of the first 2 uplink terminals, as you're going to be coming back anyway and you can grab it later. Some people like to do the bottom uplink first and the top one last, but personally I like to do it the other way around, as I find it to be a whole lot more manageable. So run all the way to the top. The route you take doesn't really matter. You could stick to the inside route, you could go to the outside route, it's up to you. You can kill off some of the enemies as you're going up, just try not to stop in place for too long. Just keep on moving, and if you run past any doors, feel free, if you're the mine deploy person, go on ahead and mine them. You don't have to, but you can, depends on how many you have, and again, just make your way to the top. When you get to the very top uplink terminal, you're going to want to quickly set up defenses. There are some doors nearby, so you can place mines on them if you want. There are different paths enemies can take, so I would recommend you sort of look at one of the directions enemies can take and place down one of your 2 sentries in that direction, and then one person hop onto the terminal, put the uplink connect command in, get the full team scan to appear. Everybody hop on the full team scan, deal with any of the flyers that are attacking you while you're doing this, And once you finish the uplink scan, get away from the terminal except for the person who's doing it. You don't want to get too close to them, that way they don't get hit by enemies who are shooting at you, or you don't accidentally kick them out of the terminal because you stood too close to it. Just spread out a bit and watch different directions. Don't have all 3 people watching the same route. Try to make sure everybody is watching a different route. That way, no matter which way they come up, you are there and ready for them. Biotracker person, you are incredibly important during the segment. You need to be tagging enemies as fast as you possibly can and as often as you can. That way, no matter which way they take to come up to you, they will be seen by your teammates and they'll know it in advance. 3 people, do your best, try to side strafe around, don't stand perfectly still, that way the flyers don't hit you as often. Focus on the flyers when you can, but focus more so on the strikers and shooters as they are a lot higher priority. Just keep on doing stuff, person on the uplink terminal, just work as fast as you can. Once you put the 4th code in, let your teammates know, grab your sentries, pack up your stuff, and run. You don't need to wait for the 4th code to fully go in. As soon as you hit enter and you know for a fact you actually put the correct one in, just start making your way down to the 2nd terminal that's not too far below you. Grab any boxes and locker resources that you can on the way down, restock, heal people up, make sure ammo is good, refill the sentries, and just keep moving. This 2nd uplink terminal is pretty difficult because this is a very close quarter area. If you're on the terminal facing towards the right, that is a little corridor. I highly recommend you place one of the burst sentries. The other one could be directly behind you on the other side of the pillar, or it could be to the left of you, the way you just came down, up to your team. But same thing as before, person on the uplink terminal, get to work on it. Other 3 people, so we're just focus on the 3 directions, keep enemies away. You have pretty good cover from the flyer, so don't worry too much about this point here. But just make sure that none of the enemies are getting close, and make sure the person on the uplink terminal is staying safe. By the way, actually, I should have mentioned this earlier. Whoever is doing the uplink terminal, don't just sit on that the entire time. When you put a code in, or when you're waiting for the command to process and the next code to appear, help your teammates out. You have guns as well, so make sure you're shooting at enemies, and then when you need to, hop back on the terminal. Don't just sit there the entire time and think, yep, this is up to my team, this is not my problem, because no, very bad mentality. You need to help out as well. But like the first one, just keep on going. Once you finish it, pack up your belongings and start making your way down to where the first terminal is. Be careful, don't run head first through a giant horde of enemies. If there's about 10 of them in front of you, deal with them first, but once you have a clear path, make your way down. I actually recommend try to take a different path down than the one you took up. That way, instead of running by boxes and lockers of resources you've already picked up, you can go with the side routes. Personally, I find when I go up, I like to take the center route and get those resources, and on the way down, I like to take the side routes through the doors and the cavern walls and get those. But just grab the resources, make your way down, and once you get to the bottom one, this area will 100% be covered by fog, but again, it's not too hard to see through. If you want though, just throw some fog repellers, place your sentries down. This uplink is incredibly easy to defend at because a lot of the flyers and armored flyers actually get caught up and they get stuck when they're trying to come down. And the shotgunners and shooters are going to spawn very far away. They spawn pretty much all the way at the top, so when they spawn in, they have to run down a lot of staircases and ladders to get to you. And even then, there's a very nice one-way funnel they have to take to get to your team. The only real big thing you need to worry about is the person on the uplink terminal is pre-exposed, so if there's an armored flyer or two, you need to make sure you deal with them quickly because they will immediately destroy the person on the terminal if you're not careful. A good thing to do if you're the person on the terminal is, again, whenever you put a code in or you're waiting for the code, hop off and start shooting behind you. If you see a flyer is about to shoot at you, sidestep it. Don't just sit there and take that beating. But do your best to hold out. It might be a bit dicey here, but it shouldn't be too bad. Once you get the fourth code in, you're just going to have to defend for a bit longer, and after a short delay, you will be teleported back into Zone 81, where you were standing out before you got teleported the first time. One last thing, though, is be careful, because if there were still enemies alive coming after you right when you got teleported out to the Desert Realm, those enemies will still be alive when you come back. I've actually had a few runs where I get teleported back, and there's a wave of about 7 or 8 enemies right there in my face, ready to attack me. So when you get teleported back, don't just take your hands off the keyboard and mouse and assume you're safe, because you might not actually be safe. But assuming you are, and every single enemy is dead, and you don't have anything else to worry about, you can take a huge sigh of relief, because you are basically done with the level. There's a little bit more to it, but from this point on, you're in the clear. There really is no reason you should die, so congratulations, because you've basically beaten DX at this point. But let's actually make that completion official and explain the last bit that you need to do. So once you get teleported back, your objective will update and it'll tell you to head to Zone 82 and confirm the status of Specimen 22. So make your way back through Zone 81. If you did not clear out the first room, be careful as you go through here. When you get back into Zone 80, on the eastern side, you'll find the security door to Zone 82. This is just a full team scan. Once you go in, there will be no enemies you have to worry about whatsoever, so you can just run full sprint. When you get to the final room of Zone 82, you'll have to go up to the very top where you'll be able to find Specimen 22's corpse. Once you go near it, the game will update and it will actually automatically open up the security door to zone 83, which is found on the eastern side of the zone. So you can just head right down, go into zone 83. Again, no enemies in here whatsoever. You'll be able to find your extraction scan, and this extraction scan is a slow extraction, but it is a silent one. No enemies are going to be spawning in while you're defending, so you could just sit on the scan, wait for it, and once it hits 100%, you are done, and you have beaten R6DX. And that's all there really is to it. Just like always, if you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you want to say, leave it down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, then consider hitting that like button and sharing it with your friends who might also be struggling with this level. I'm pretty sure they'll appreciate it and they'll thank you for it. And also, I mean, hey, likes and shares help out the channel and it helps these videos get noticed by people who really need them, so it is greatly appreciated by me. And while you're down there with the whole liking the video and sharing it, you might as well hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. I also have my own Discord server, so if you want to go the extra mile and become part of my community, hop right on in. Link is down in the description. Also in the description, you can find a link that will take you to the official GTFO merch store. So if you love this game and want to pick up some sweet merch, go take a look and see what they've got for you. The merch store actually does update every once in a while, and even though they don't announce it, there is new stuff every so often. I actually just checked recently and I found a few new products in there that weren't in there the first time I took a look. So even if there's nothing that really interests you currently, don't be afraid to take a look maybe a month or two later, as there might be something new that actually will catch your eye. But until next time, good luck with any R6 levels that you still have left. Hopefully you can complete them all before Rundown 7 is released. And I'll see you all in the next video.